G'day folks, and welcome to Great Chesterford Junction Model Railway, and this is your update for September 2024. We're going to look at a couple of things today that have happened over the last month or so, and so we'll get into it straight away and I'll show you the first thing.
Well, this, as you've probably seen before, is my Fiddleyard cassette area, and this is the top row here is where I dispatch my trains into Great Chesterford from here. And to give me some extra storage and add to the capacity of the drawer I have over here on the left, I've put these shelves in down below the dispatch area. There's actually 3 shelves, 2 of them are occupied at the moment, the bottom one is not occupied. The shelves are actually 1.6 metres long and they go off under a little barred field there. You can't actually see the end of them in this light, but they're considerably longer than the cassette. That cassette that we're looking at there is 1.2 metres, so there's an extra 400 millimetres at the end of it there. So what this means is that I'm making up some shorter cassettes eventually, possibly around 800 millimetres or so. So it's possible to get 2 of them on one shelf, or indeed to mix and match as I've done here. I've got a single just up there that you can see, and that's got a rail car on it. And then that's followed by another 1.2 metre cassette, so they fit quite easily. So that's going to help tremendously with my storage issues. There's a bit of a lip on the edge of the shelf here, so nothing can sort of fall off, and there's enough height in the shelf so the cassette can be lifted up and over the lip to transfer it up to the dispatch area. So that's the first development.
The second development is my coupling system, and yes, I'm still working on couplings, and I've made a sort of a progression on the coupling system. The previous system where I thought I'd finished was a fixed system, I suppose you would describe it as, where each wagon had a magnetic coupling at each end and both couplings were the same polarity. And so it was necessary to set up wagons, say with north polarity, the next wagon would be south polarity, the next one would be north, etc., etc. So that each wagon had to be set up very carefully with the polarity of the magnets. This became a little awkward with trains, especially when running around, shunting, that sort of thing. And so one development which sort of helped to cancel out the effect of this polarity problem was I developed a rotating coupling to go on the locos, and then consequently that went on to the brake vans as well, and that made life a lot easier because then a loco could connect to any wagon regardless of its polarity, and the same applied to the brake van. So it still didn't solve the problem, the ultimate problem of making up trains and having a universal system. So the answer was to actually develop a rotating coupling for the wagons and as well. And I'll show you what I've got here.
Right, this is a coupling made up and pretty much ready to go. So we have the now this is all made from copper wire, household copper wire. So this is the connecting shaft that goes into the wagon, and then we've got this little coupling made up here. I've got jigs for some of this stuff. I've got a jig to wind the copper around and form the coupling, and then we've got 2 neodymium magnets here, and they are on each side of another piece of straight copper. Now that straight copper, I've worked out a system to put a flat spot in the middle of that so that the magnets can be glued onto that. And the reason I'm using all copper here is because it's not magnetic. I originally was using staples, and I was finding that when you get two couplings facing each other, the opposing coupling was attracted to the staple as well as the magnet. So it probably would go to the staple before it would go to the magnet. So now we've converted over to just the copper wire all through. So when there's an opposing or an opposite coupling on the other side of this, it's only attracted to the magnets. And of course, being circular, the wire, it makes for easy rotation within the coupling here. So the magnet, if that's facing the same polarity on the other one, this will rotate, or the other one will rotate to match. So that's how it works. So this is what we can call the axle, if you like, and you can see how there's a flat spot created in the middle. That's to accept a 3mm magnet. It's slightly bigger. When the magnets are glued either side of this, this shaft is then put into another jig and it's trimmed off so that it leaves about 1.5mm each side of the magnet. That allows it then to be put into the coupling. And this is one of the couplings. This is formed over a piece of 3mm thick flat bar, and 3mm obviously to suit the size of the magnet and all that sort of thing. So it's quite easy to churn these things out once you have a jig, and that makes life a lot easier. So now we'll have a look at them on a wagon. So this is one of the first wagons that I did, and the coupling is fitted in here quite neatly and painted flat black once it's done. And you'll notice that I've got across here, I've got a wire across the buffers. Now this is roughly 1/4mm phosphor bronze wire fitted across the buffers, and the reason for that is that with these couplings, when you're pushing a train, they fold down and then the buffers are touching. So if you're passing through a fairly tight radius set of points, it's possible, if you don't have the wire on there, that the buffers will lock. With the wire on there, that cancels out that problem. So that's one of the compromises that has to be made with this system. Now if I just push two wagons together, you can see how it works. I'll try and do it as slowly as I can. It's tricky, but you can see that they quite readily lift up and connect. And then as they push together, you can see what I mean about the buffers coming together. So that's why the wires are there. Anyway, I've got a short demo which shows the couplings working, and with the loco coming up and attaching to wagons, etc., and also doing loose shunting. And it also shows the type of shunter's pole that I'm using now, which is quite a big thing, but it's quite necessary because what I'm doing now is actually uncoupling using the buffers only, not sort of breaking the connection with the coupling directly. I'm doing it with the buffers, and all will become clear in the video that follows. G'day folks, this is the new improved uncoupler for my coupling system. I know it looks a bit heavy and cumbersome, but by the same token it's designed to be easy to use. It's also got a hook on here which is used with the coupling on the locomotive to set it up for loose shunting. The idea of the width here is that in some cases you can push this down in between the buffers and you need to give it a bit of a twist, and the width of the ply here actually gives you quite a good amount of leverage, so you can move something quite gently. But anyway, I'll show you how it works on wagons. Before I do, this is the coming in now. This is the previous system I had, which is a much more slim and elegant sort of design, if you can call that elegant. Yeah, it had a little copper hook on the end for the coupling on the loco as well. But anyway, we'll bring some wagons in and then we'll have a look at it. Alright folks, this is how it works. Now you bring the shunter's pole down in between the wagons, and then the two prongs have to go in between the buffers, each buffer head. There's no contact with the coupling here at all. And at the moment it's just resting there because that seems to be about as far as it can go. But what we do is we give it a slight tap on the top, and then it actually separates the magnets because of the thickness of the wedge at this point. And then we use the packing or the ply on the back of the shunter's pole on the right there to push against the wagon that you want to leave behind, and you just gently push it, and you'll notice that the couplings drop. They're no longer attracted to each other magnetically, and you've uncoupled. It's as simple as that. Obviously there's no issues with coupling, it's pure magnetic attraction, so if we gently move this wagon back, they do it all by themselves. Now with the loco, we want to separate the wagon from the loco, so I'll just give it a bit of a twist in this case, and you can see the couplings drop. Now I'll just move that loco back a little bit, and we'll set it up for loose shunting. So we just come underneath with the hook that's on the other end of the shunter's pole. Now that coupling now is attracted to a staple that's on the top of the buffer beam there, so it's magnetically attracted. So now we should be able to bring the loco back to the wagon and gently push it. You can see the coupling on the wagon moved a little bit, but it can't go past the wire that's between the buffers. So now we can just reverse up, and there we have it. There's no connection. Simple. So to bring us back to status quo, we use the wedge end of the shunter's pole and just gently bring the coupling down again, and then we bring the loco back up to the train, to the wagon, and she's connected. That's how it works. Now I'll just bring a couple of other wagons over. These are the original what was the latest version of my coupling system, which is polarity specific. So these magnets are the same polarity on each end of this wagon. So to connect this wagon up to another wagon, we have to have the other wagon of the opposite polarity. So I'll just bring one in, and you can see by the markings on the axle box, this is white and the previous one was red. Now these wagons will still work with my new system because it will adapt. Because this coupling here is a rotating coupling, it will find the correct polarity to match up with this wagon. So you can see that it's found it there. So if we bring the other wagon in, which I'll just grab now, we'll bring that over, and it should find the correct polarity for that one as well. So it's had to rotate in its coupling to find the correct polarity, and see, the strength is good. I can pull the loco with that. Now when these wagons get new couplings, the near version, everything will be interchangeable. There'll be no problem. So it's the same system though with these. You can see there's a bit more of a gap between the buffers, and probably the best way with this one is just to give it a gentle sort of a rotate until the couplings drop away. That one didn't exactly drop away, but they're uncoupled. It's as simple as that.
So that's how it all works, folks. The demo pretty much shows exactly how things work. Now, it's not the end of the story though, because when you decide to go down this road of using chain couplings, I suppose, and the problem with buffers butting up to each other, okay, you can solve it with putting a wire across the buffers, but that's not the only problem, because the British stock doesn't really follow any sort of set standard like the Americans do, or the Europeans possibly. And what you'll come up against is if you have old stock and new stock like I do. Some of the old stock, the buffer height on that is significantly different to the new stock. So you've got this one sitting here, one sitting lower down here. So, and because of that, the buffers don't match up. Now on the Ginty loco that you saw in that little demo, the way around that problem was to enlarge the buffer heads. So I made up some new buffers for that locomotive so that its buffers are significantly bigger. I'm having trouble with that word. They're a lot bigger than what they were on the model originally. And if you look up British standards on buffers, way back in the 1800s, I think they settled on a buffer size of 12 inches, a diameter of 12 inches, and I think as much as 15 inches if necessary. And certainly most of my stock is around about the 12 inches, which would be 4 millimeters in the 00 scale, but some of them I think are smaller. I haven't actually measured them all. Some of them are actually smaller, like little pinheads. So I had I think it was a mainline bogie wagon, which had very small buffers on it. So I've enlarged the buffers on that as well to deal with the system. Yeah. So if you had all brand new stock, all at the same buffer height, same size couplings, it's probably less of an issue. Also, if you had large radius points, etc., you probably wouldn't even need the wire. But if you've got some tight radius stuff like I do, well, the wire is necessary. So yeah, the standards don't help, unfortunately. So I've got some older wagons that sit a bit higher than the new wagons. I've got older locomotives that sit a bit higher and all that sort of thing. Some of the buffers on some of the locomotives that are way too small. So yeah, it's not just making couplings and putting wires on. There's a bit more to it. You've got to assess each one as you go along. So yeah, it's fun and games, but I'm sort of starting to achieve a standard system in my railway. I mean, the easy way, obviously, is to just go in and put KD couplings on everything, but that would cost a lot of money, and yeah, so it's about roughly $5 a wagon or a loco, and when you start adding up wagons, it starts to run into a lot of money. So I'm still pursuing this system, and I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So that's your update for September, and take care, take it easy, and I'll catch up with you next month. See ya. Gourmet.